significant person on the face of this earth. She means more to me than anyone in my life, and she is Superwoman in my eyes. So, um, so we are.
Oh, God.
I didn't mean to make you start
Now,
talking.
now you've done it.
So today on Everything is Attitude, we're talking about laughter. No, we're not talking about laughter. We're talking about um, uh, the having a really good attitude, especially in these times, but overall having a good attitude about empathy, understanding, and kindness for others. So I tried to have empathy for you, Rosemary, and tell you how much you mean to everybody.
Shut up. Now, good evening, Al. Let's be slightly professional about this. Good evening, Al, and welcome everybody. And let me just clarify what just happened. This is so funny. So Al and I were talking before the show because I can't say too much.
No, you
But
can't. Yeah. Well,
but
that was the nice thing about it. You can't say too much about it. You just got to let it
no,
hang.
thank you. But I was feeling slightly. What would you say, Al?
Under appreciated, under noted.
I don't know about. I don't know. Maybe it is underappreciated. But recently, there were a group of people that I deal with who. And I have some wonderful, wonderful helpers, really phenomenal helpers. And somebody wrote, I'm laughing, and somebody wrote a letter, a wonderful letter. It was a really lovely letter, and saying how much they enjoyed what we'd been doing and so on, and then proceeded to point to every single person
Who's involved in this? Yes,
who
who's
was involved and
yeah.
helped and put time and effort in and so on and so forth, expounding their wonderful abilities, which was absolutely right. And I was so pleased to read that, and I was so pleased to see that they were all really, really super appreciated because, this person said how fabulous everybody was, and I could not agree more. But as I read through the letter, it became glaringly obvious to me that there was one person. I was laughing about it. There was one person who was left out of all of the accolades. Now, I have to tell you that I'm not a person who needs accolades, although everybody likes to be told that they're doing a good job, right? But it was so glaringly obvious that everybody else was doing an amazing and a great job. And yet, as the head of this group of people and the main, what would you say, organizer of it, I got zip. Zips out, nothing. And I just read it to her and I thought, I've missed something here. And so then I read it again, and everything that was said was really, really lovely. I have no complaints, except that it's glaringly obvious that I'm missing from all of all of it actually. All of it. So it sort of left me a bit bemused, and I was talking to Al about it. And please, you don't feel that you have to do what Al just did.
No, definitely do what I just did. The
Don't
comments and
feel, don't you dare! I don't
make
need
sure
everybody to.
you
I
give
do
tons
not.
and tons of accolades and appreciation for Rose.
Stop it! Stop it! No, I don't need it. It just was. Well, come on, Al. If you had been in my shoes and you had done what I'd done, you would at least want somebody to say, "And well done to Al too," wouldn't
Of
you?
course,
Even
and
if that was
that's
all it was.
yeah, it does have to do with empathy and understanding, doesn't it? Like like
But
say, hey, maybe I should include this person that
no.
is
So,
the person that
so
steers the ship.
well, it falls very nicely into what we're talking about today because you know, uh, we have a we have a situation going on in the world right now. I had a text from a friend today from Australia saying that they were on lockdown and they were having the same issues all the way over in Australia. Of course, I think they're closer to, aren't they closer to China in the Far East than we are? I think they are, sort of. I'd have to look at the. Don't quote me on that. Don't take that as absolute. But I think that part of the empathy that we're going to be talking about empathy, kindness. What else was there? There was
Just understanding of
an
others.
understanding. And I think that we so, in these times, what they do in New York at a certain time of night, everybody goes outside wherever they are. They go outside or they open their windows and they applaud and they bang drums and they do all of that to show their appreciation for the nurses, for the doctors, for the all the people who have to work, all those people who put their lives on the line and risk their health for the rest of us. And I think it's fantastic that we do that, but we only seem to do that in times when something like this happens and it sort of it hits us in the eye. And I think that very in normal life and normal life situations, I think it's so easy to take people for granted. And when we take people for granted, we don't have the empathy, we don't have the kindness, we don't have the understanding. Maybe that person has been working, and for instance, let's give an example. Maybe a mother has been standing cooking all day, cooking, cleaning, seeing to the kids, washing the diapers, all the rest of it, all day, and the kids come in and nobody says thanks to the mom. They just all sit down at the table, they eat the food and so right. And uh, sometimes I know that mothers, being a mother myself, I know that we feel somewhat underappreciated. But then all of a sudden we get the cuddles, or we get the, mummy do this, or daddy do this, or give me a kiss, or whatever. And all of a sudden we realize that we actually are appreciated, and our kids do understand, even if it's for a moment in time. But it's how do we, at the moment, people are more empathetic and they are kinder. They are kinder to everybody, I think. At the moment, people are, I mean, neighbors who don't normally talk to each other will shout across the gardens. You can hear them. I don't talk to anybody, but you can hear the neighbors. That's not quite true. It's almost true, but not quite true. But you can hear people, they're calling to each other. Are you okay? Do you need anything? Neighbors are phoning each other. All of these amazing apps are springing up. I heard of one today. I can't remember now what it is, but it sounds amazing. There's House Party, which is amazing. All of these apps to bring people together and to get people together are sort of coming to the fore now, which is great. But we only have to go back not very far in history to 9/11, and everybody was phenomenal, really phenomenal. You didn't hear one car honking in the street for nearly 2 years after it happened.
Yeah.
People were respectful of each other. People were caring of each other. People were kind to each other. People were understanding and empathetic of the fact that people had suffered and truly suffered and were still suffering. But then all of a sudden it goes away and we get back to normal, which is, that we just take things for granted once again. And I'm sure once this situation is over, we're going to take things for granted again. What was it you said about the 6 degrees of separation, Al?
Yeah, I was saying normally we have like 6 degrees of separation as far as things going on in people's lives, whether it's tragedy or something challenging, right? And someone will know somebody maybe 6 people away. But now it seems like that's this has affected what's going on now. Has affected, you ask one person and they know somebody who's severely affected, or they have somebody who's either ill or passed away. Especially in the New York area, we both have friends and family in the New York area, and it is. I mean, if you look at any of the maps, I mean, it is most of the cases are there, most of the deaths are there. There's up to 30,000 deaths nationwide. So it's specifically with COVID. So there's somebody knows somebody, and it's just 1 degree away now, and it's something that that I think makes us even more understand. Not everybody can kind of understand and have empathy and be kind. That they are more prone to do so, I think, when it hits closer to home, and meaning it's a sister, brother, cousin, uncle, aunt, grandmother, mother, father,
Neighbor.
Neighbor. Yeah, when it hits really close to home, then people get that perspective that they may or may not have had before. And I think with this in particular, with 9/11, it hit home because everybody was brought into it, and you didn't have a choice but to notice that it was there. And if you ignored it,
Right.
Especially with this, even more so, if you can't ignore it, it's your neighbor, it's your mother,
it's in your face. It really is.
It's in your face.
And it's also, it's a scary situation. So I think that when we have that understanding that it's our neighbors, it's the people around us, it's the people we might bump into in the grocery store. It's my neighbor called me the other day, and she said she went into the grocery store. She said it was so scary because everybody in the grocery store was wearing masks, and she stood in the doorway and she froze because it was like something out of one of these futuristic movies. Because you don't expect it at all. You don't even think twice about it.
So Rosemary, I had a challenging day the other day, and in regard to empathy and understanding of others.
Oh, good. I'm listening.
So as some know that listen, my son Justin has an autoimmune thing, and he's started treatments for this autoimmune thing that he has, and he was scheduled, I think, Tuesday to go for a second treatment at Children's Hospital, which is a hospital over here. Great hospital, great people so far. My wife Christine and I went to his appointment. It's about 45 minutes away, this particular hospital. So we get ready, and Justin's he's got anxiety things. It's only his second time. He's not crazy about needles. He's still unsure about the treatments. It doesn't take much for him to get even more anxious about it, but he's been doing well with it. So we get to the hospital, we park, we get to the hospital, we go inside, and the woman there says, "I'm sorry, only one of you can go in with your son."
Excuse me?
She says, "Only one parent can go in with your son." And to set up like the hospital now, it really is, it's like a war zone. Like everybody's in masks. They're trying to make sure that people are only a few people going at once. It's really a tense space. So I said, "What do you mean only one?" "We left a message for you on the phone." So they apparently left a message, which we didn't get. And I of course chimed in because I saw how upset Justin was. I'm like, there has to be a way. So this one woman, the gatekeeper, essentially was given no authority to do anything, and they refused to send somebody down for me to talk to. They refused to send anybody down. So, but it was a situation where, number one, my son was already upset, and if I had made a scene, I may have been arrested too. So I didn't want that because of the times we're in, right? Or taken aside or whatever it was, and also he would have gotten even more upset. So I stepped away. Christine went up with him, and she talked to the head nurse, and there were no exceptions to be made. So he needed to get his stuff done. So at the time, I was like, I'm not going to push this. The priority one is to get his treatments and get him in. And then he went upstairs, and he was in this big communal room, which he shouldn't have been in. But I really had no way to influence anything because I was on the outside. So I probably made a tactical error because I set my wife up, but I had no way to
That's a
influence.
tactical error because you
Yeah.
could have dealt with it.
um, I love my wife, but she is not the one to fight the fight.
No.
So I told my wife, I said, send me every number you can get because I'm going to call every person I can call. And I stopped myself from doing that because while I was furious at this director who wouldn't come down, this woman that wouldn't come down and wouldn't allow me to even talk to her about the situation and what's going on my son.
we have to bear in mind now we've got a young boy who's really going through some awful stuff.
Yes,
Right. So you're doing
exactly.
this for him. It's not that you're being difficult. You're doing this for him.
And sure enough, because I wasn't up there, he had a really tough time. He was hysterical crying. He was upset. Um, I was on the phone with him, literally in the parking lot on the phone, FaceTiming him while he was getting all this stuff done. It was ridiculous that I wasn't up there, but I stepped back and realized that I could call this woman and really lash into her, but I did. I think in any other time I would have, but I was like, what is this woman probably going through at this time as a director of a hospital in the children's hospital? And do I want to sort of take a stand on the hill for when I wouldn't have even been able to get in. By the time I got through to her, the treatment was over. And I thought about it the
And
next
it's
day too.
difficult because you don't want to alienate anyone because then there's a
Right.
tendency for them to take it out on the kids.
That's exactly right. And it wasn't worth anyone there who I could talk to. It wasn't their doing. They were giving a directive and they had been on the lines and they've been exposed to whatever for
So
weeks.
all of your patience and all of your
It had to
learning had to come to the fore now, right?
yes,
How
exactly.
did you do that?
Exactly. It was challenging because even sitting in the car, the frustration and the anger didn't go away, and my empathy meter was really really low. Like I did not have empathy at the time for this woman.
Well, you had empathy for your son,
I had
so
empathy for my son,
it
and I had
gets very clouded, right, when you lose your kids, right?
and I had anger at first towards her until I stepped back and I was like, all right, it's not, and it took me a little while to do this. So I'm
I
not
believe you.
it did not happen immediately. Because it did. It got worse for him and he got more upset and he calmed down after the initial piece, which helped me calm down too. But the point is that empathy is not easy to do. In that situation for me, it wasn't easy for me to have empathy and understanding of the two nurses that were saying you can't come in and there's nothing we could do about it. They saw how angry I got. I am sure they saw how angry I got. Even with my mask on, they had to see how angry I was getting.
It was the red eyes and
Yeah,
the
exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
the steam coming out of your ears.
That's exactly right.
But you know what I say. I've always said this to you, right? And you've actually mentioned it on this show that I always say this to you.
It's easy when it's easy.
It's easy when it's easy. Exactly. It's easy when it's easy. It's not so easy when it's hard. So when we're talking about empathy and when we're talking about kindness, when someone is rude to you, or when somebody it seems to be mean, or when somebody's abrupt, or they're not doing what they're supposed to do, or you're having a conversation on the phone with someone and you know that they're lying through their teeth. ADT, for instance, who have been charging me twice a month for the last several months, a year, more than a year, for a service, and then I'm on the phone, I'm giving them the dates, I'm giving them the amounts, and at one point I can feel myself because the guy keeps saying to me, "Oh, hold on, I'm asking for the whatever the department, the finance department. I'm asking for a manager." And each time he comes back, "No, sorry, no, sorry." Well, I can't see anything. I can't. The steam is coming out of my ears because I've got the evidence before my eyes. It's very clear. And then on top of that, he and I say to him, look, I know it isn't your fault. I don't mean to shout at you, but get me someone who
Right.
can deal with this, right? And he kept, no, sorry, they're all busy. No, no one's available, and so on. So I got him to promise me that somebody would call me back later that day. Did anybody call me back on Wednesday? No. Did anybody call me back today? No. So now I have to spend hours on the phone tomorrow. So it's easy when it's easy. Now I could think to myself, and the here's the thing: there is no excuse for it, because I know if I called ADT, I hope they're listening. If I called ADT and said to them, I'd like to update, make more, put more,
Yeah.
they'd be here like that.
Yes, it's true.
I know this.
With any
If
sound, yeah.
anybody out there is listening and knows ADT or knows to put a word in, believe you me, tomorrow I am letting loose on them. But I don't have empathy for people who try to dodge. So it's, again, you can't be kind to everybody. Not everybody deserves your kindness. Sometimes you have to get, you have to sort of forget you were at the hospital. The number one priority for you is your son, and so. But at the same time, you definitely would have been restrained or taken off to prison. Or
Well, I stopped after the nurse that was seeing if there was an exception list too, which infuriated me even more. So
there
she
was.
said, yeah. So she said to me, she said to me, "I'm sorry. I understand what you're going through," and I said, "Do you understand what I'm going through?"
Of course she doesn't.
I said, I don't think you do. And then that's when I stopped myself, because I was really spiraling the wrong way. So, but it's like, but then thinking about it afterwards, like this, what position, and the director in this instance, in my mind, didn't have empathy and understanding for myself, my kids, her employees that she leaves to be the guard there, instead of her coming down out of wherever she is
dealing with the situation.
and dealing with the situation, because I guarantee, Maggie is on and says those nurses who can't show up but have feelings for the patients. I am sure, and the parents, I am sure the nurses down in the lobby and up in where Justin was getting his treatments felt horrible, especially the nurse that had to put his IV in and set up the treatments, and saw how upset he was, calling out for my name while they were trying to put the IV in. So I am sure that they have empathy and understanding. But again, they're also very connected. The director was in either home working or in an
office or
somewhere,
such or wherever,
and had more than 6 degrees of separation, right? So she had no idea. So it's easy for her to dismiss empathy, understanding, kindness, and rational thought to make an exception here or there. It wouldn't have broken the system. They're trying to not have as many people go up. If you made a few exceptions,
but the point here, Al, is it's really applying common sense.
Right.
If a child is so distraught, and he obviously was, he wasn't a kid who's just having a temper tantrum and stamping his feet because he can't have his own way. He was obviously extremely distraught. He hates the treatment and so on. We're talking about one more body wearing a mask,
Right.
helping the nurses to calm this child down so that they can do their job much quicker, much easier, move him out and get on to the next patient. It's applied common sense.
Even if it was just let me up for 10, you can go up for 10 minutes, then you're going to have to leave. And once the procedure started,
well, then putting him in a communal space was like, oh, really, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure how I would have handled it. I might have stormed the gates.
It was really hard because you couldn't, like, literally they said, and sir, you can't wait in the lobby either. You have to leave the hospital.
What?
So, because they didn't want anybody.
Yeah, that
They,
makes sense. That
they
makes
didn't
sense.
want anybody in the space.
Were you wearing a mask?
I was wearing a mask, but so it was a really weird scenario.
Oh, no,
You couldn't really do much. Yeah.
that's difficult. That's a difficult one.
So we have a couple comments.
Go
We
ahead.
have Maggie who says hello, and she says, "Rosemary, you are so greatly appreciated in so many ways." Thank you, Maggie, for responding to the
I
comment.
can totally. Maggie always responds and
We
says
would love
that.
to have Maggie on the show too. She's seen so many times.
Yes, come on, Maggie, be on the show.
Uh,
We'd love to have you.
she says, similar to how you think your troubles are so great until you hear the troubles another has, and your perspective changes. And with that, Maggie, my wife said that there was actually a 3-year-old child just on the other side of the curtain from Justin getting cancer treatments, and her father was there. And my wife said, I wonder if they didn't let the mother come up or one of them come up for a 3-year-old child too.
My.
So as challenging it was for us, it could have been twice,
Even more
triple,
so.
yeah, more so for that 3-year-old.
Yeah, and I think that's when we really need to exercise empathy. The difficulty about empathy is if you've never had a backache, you can sympathize with people who suffer with back pain, but you can't necessarily empathize with them. You very often have to have gone through a situation in order to have true empathy for somebody else who's going through the same thing. But it's easy here. I'm hearing so many people complaining, I'm fed up, I'm stuck here, I'm this and that, and so on and so forth. And I'm trying my best to, buoy people on. And, I was giving out my pita bread recipe this morning, and, say, hey, we can do this. Let's have fun and so on. It's easy because we're all sort of in the same boat, and we're all suffering the same kind of thing. So it is easy in these circumstances when there's a mass issue. It is easy for people to have empathy. But unless you've sort of been through something, actually, and I do find, actually, I've had some amazing doctors and some amazing nurses, but I've also had those doctors and nurses who really should never be in the profession that they're in, because not only do they not have empathy, they don't even have sympathy. And they seem to feel that they're there to sort of boss you about and tell you what you can do and what you can't do. And unfortunately, for me, more so for them, actually, I don't react well when when people start telling me, and especially when it's for my daughter or my grandson, and you get a little prissy nurse coming in saying you can't do this, and you can. Unfortunately for them, I don't do well, but I always try to remain extremely polite, but icily so. So I rarely use my temper, which is actually worse for the people on the receiving end, because but I think that's because I've had such a lot of involvement, not just with my own self, but I have patients, I have people who are sick, I've gone into homes and hospitals of people who are truly suffering dreadful things. So I've been there firsthand to see many of those things. So it's easier for me perhaps to have empathy, but it's also easier for me to deal with situations.
And Rosemary, you've said this, a number of times.
I always get nervous when you
I
say.
think,
and you said one time.
I think with empathy in particular, and I've heard you speak to people in certain ways when you are being empathetic. But empathy doesn't mean, like this nurse said to me, I know what you're going through. But people don't want to hear for your back. I know if I never had back pain, you don't want to hear me say, I know what you're going through unless I have gone through it. So empathy does not mean that you have to relate directly to what people are going through, because often we can't. If someone has lost a
Well, I
child,
think
you
true
know,
empathy. I think
right?
true empathy, and obviously this lovely nurse needs to learn this. True empathy in that particular circumstance is when somebody will say to you because they feel it, "I can't possibly know what you're going through, but I am trying to help."
That's it, right?
And that, had she said that to you, you might have come down a little bit.
Yes,
The steam
exactly.
may have lessened a bit. But when you hear someone say, "Oh, I know what you're going through," your reaction is actually, "No, you don't. No, you actually don't. So please don't tell me you understand, because you actually don't."
Right.
So, when you're in those circumstances with, with people for whatever reason, somebody's lost their money, somebody has a struggle with weight loss, somebody's uh, got lost a child, or they've just gone through a bereavement, they've lost their mother or so on, and so I hear it all the time. So many people will say, "Oh, I understand." Actually, what you need to say is, "I understand you're having a difficult time. I can't possibly know what it is you're going through, how you're feeling, but I do understand that you're having a difficult time. How can I help?"
Right. Exactly.
Right? And so I think sort
And
of,
also, I would say, if we were sort of doing a recipe here too, I'd also say, don't bring it back to you. Well, I went through this one time and I did this. I have people
don't
close
you
to
hate
me.
it? Don't you hate it?
I have people very close to me that do that all the time, and they make it about them, and that's a disservice to whoever is feeling bad or down or whatever it is. That is the opposite of empathy. You don't. Empathy and understanding is about trying to feel for others and what they're going through and help them, not reverting to yourself and be like, oh, well, this one time I had this experience and I went through this. And I know why people do it, because they want to,
They
again,
want
relate.
to show you that they
Yeah,
relate,
exactly.
which is fine for a time. Show
Right.
them you relate, and then bring it back to them.
That's exactly right.
So always be mindful that when you're listening to someone, it's their story, not your story, that matters. I know that when my daughter was a sort of, I can't remember, teenager or early 20s or something or another, if I said to her, "Oh gosh, my back is hurting today," she'd say, "Yeah, I've got an awful headache." then I'd say, and I damaged my wrist, and she said, "Yeah, I hurt my ankle." And it's like, and I would laugh at her and say, "If I said bum ache, what would you have now? Would you say elbow ache? What would you? Oh, this is not a competition here."
Right.
But it was just a phase, sort of a teenage thing that she went through. But I know so many people who do that, who sort of, you're feeling really rotten. You're feeling really, "I'm so depressed today." "Oh yeah, well, I had a really lousy day. Let me tell you what happened to me yesterday." And they've just dismissed
I
completely.
know.
They've dismissed you
And it's
completely.
almost trying to like one up, like,
Yeah,
oh, well, you think
yeah.
that's bad.
Yeah, it's like when you get these old ladies they all get together, and one will say, "Oh, I take whatever Prozac," and somebody will say, "Oh, well, I take Vicodin." "Well, I take this, and I take 5 pills a day." "Well, I have to take 11 pills," and on it goes. And there's sort of this competition,
There
especially
should be
around
no
health issues.
competition, no competition in empathy, right?
No competition. And I think another important thing, another ingredient in this, is honestly the ability to really listen to somebody,
Yes.
and to let them know that you're listening, and to, from time to time, ask a question which pertains to what they are saying to you, so that they understand that you are not only listening, but you are actually interested. So many
Engaged and
people
interested. Yeah.
so many people just wait for somebody else to talk. They wait for somebody else to finish talking so they can dive in with what, and they've not heard a word you said, and they've not heard a word you said. But so
I'm sorry,
showing
what were you
appreciation.
saying, Rosemary?
Yeah, showing. I knew you were going to say that. Showing appreciation. Well, it's like, everybody else gets the accolades but me. That's actually not true, because just to put everybody's mind at ease, and to let everybody know that I'm actually not looking for you to give me accolades. Um, I get accolades all the time. In fact, my daughter, again, when she was in her teens and early 20s, she was so sickened by it because everybody thought that I was wonderful. I was an angel. Oh my gosh, look how she does this and look how she is with that person, so on and so forth. And my daughter would mutter under her breath, yeah, why they don't see her at home. Like, which is so true. Because when you're out and you're dealing with people, especially with people who are in need, who are in trouble, or who whatever, you really try to be patient with them. But when you're at home and it's just you and the dog, or you and the kids, or whatever, hey, it's it's easy to be impatient, right?
Yes,
You
exactly.
can't be a saint all the time, can you? Not the times I'm not a saint anytime, but anyway.
And so we have Maggie said, I had a doctor when I disagreed with him over a diagnosis for my daughter tell me he was the top of his class. I told him even flotsam will come to the surface, it comes to the top from the bottom of the decayed stuff at the bottom of a river. Uh,
I like that.
yeah,
I
exactly.
would love to know what his answer was,
Yeah,
Maggie. I
I
would
know, right?
love to know how he
Exactly.
dealt with that.
Exactly. So we're coming close to time. We do have class after this, so
We
uh,
do.
so I I hope that with the whole piece with empathy and understanding, what I'm trying to say, and I think what we've tried to say is it isn't always easy, right? With empathy and understanding, some situations make it more challenging than others, but especially now, I think it's so important to see things from other people's perspective, understand that even if we have it, what we think is bad, and we're cooped up or we can't go anywhere, well, somebody's also out of work, or somebody's not able to get the food they need, or their kids are even more ill than my son is, and they need treatment somewhere, and they're
And
driving back and
there's
forth.
also a situation. I know it's going on in New York. It's also going on everywhere else. Uh, in England, just in case anyone out there happens to be listening to this, in England they did a whole sort of documentary TV thing showing coffins piled high and people digging huge trenches to lay the coffins in, and it looked like something out of Auschwitz, except there were no coffins, as we know. It was just bodies. But from the perspective, the way they showed it to you, it was outrageous. It was outrageous. And I got emails from just about everybody I know in England saying, are you okay? What's happening? So people were panicking. Actually, what is happening is that there are, because we're not allowed at the moment to have funerals, there's a limit on funerals. Bodies are piling up, not from the COVID,
Right,
but from every possible imagined thing you can think of. I mean, good funeral homes bury maybe, let's say, a dozen people a week, right? And they can't do it. And of course, their refrigerators are full, everything's full. So they've got to find somewhere to put these bodies until people can or organize their funerals and so on. So what they're doing is they're digging pits and putting the coffins, I think, three deep or something, in order to keep them safe, in order to keep them protected, so that at the end of all of this, when the funeral homes can start to work again and people can have funerals again, that they'll know where everyone is. But the way it's being portrayed by the media is disgraceful, because it looks like thousands and thousands of bodies are falling, and thousands of people are dying. Just in this one area they saw dozens of coffins all in a row in a trench and so on. And so be careful, people, about what you're listening to. And the amount of people I've had to reassure, and the amount of people I've had to say, no, 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 that is not what is happening. This is what is happening. So be very careful. Take a step back when people tell you the awful, horrible stories, because it's nothing short of scaremongering, and it's just making situations far worse than they ever need to be. And I just thought I'd say that because I really wish that the government, whoever, would put out something to either fine or to imprison even people who are writing these awful things, deliberately scaremongering and getting people afraid to even step out of the doors. It's absolutely disgraceful, and the day can't come soon enough for me when people are made accountable, and in whatever way that they should be made accountable, and they should be. So when we're talking about empathy, not everyone deserves it. When we're talking about kindness, not everyone deserves it. But when we give it, even when it's difficult, like you did with your situation, you grow, don't you? Grow a little bit. Well, it's easy when it's easy, but it's not so easy when it's hard. But if you still can get through it and retain that empathy and understanding, even though it was hard to do it, it helps you to grow a little bit on a spiritual level, don't you think?
Oh yeah, I agree. Without a doubt.
So I think we'll close there, and you know, um, I'm sitting here thinking I can't remember if I've had dinner today. I don't know why, but that thought comes to mind. We're going to close because I don't think I had dinner. I fed the dog.
So we want to
Look
leave
at
you
this.
with 10 minutes for dinner. So
I'm going to race off and make myself something, a sandwich or something, and we'll be back to class. If you would like to appear on our show, Maggie, please email info@alpasano.com if you want to connect with Al in any way or find out who Al is and what he does. Al@alpasano.com. If you want to connect with me, because I'm wonderful and glorious and all the rest of it, says, what did you say, Al? Whatever that was, anyway.
Superwoman, incredible,
My
awesome.
email is rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. I shall be back on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. with story time, and I'm going to be telling a story about what happened to a family who went to I'm using the term loosely, a medium who absolutely was not what she said she was, and almost destroyed a family in the process. That's my story for this Saturday. Saturday at 11. Do you want to join in now? Do you want to come and listen to my story on
I think I
Saturday?
will. That's a heck of a teaser.
It's a fascinating story, and a devastating story too. It will show the absolute harm that people who claim to be something that they are not, how much damage they can do. A doctor who says, I'm a surgeon, he's never used a knife in his life, but hey, let me practice on you. That sort of damage. Because it's not just mediums who do it, it's doctors, it's caregivers, it's people who claim to do all these things when they have no clue how to do them, and the damage that it can cause to us. So that's my story for Saturday. And of course, I shall be back here on next Wednesday with my Healing Hands Around the World. I shall be on YouTube on Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We shall be back next week, Al, at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with Everything is Attitude. And
so much rosemary people can get in this time. If you're home,
if only I were loved and appreciated.
so if you're home,
which I am loved and I am appreciated.
And what better way to show that love and appreciation than to watch all of these times that you are out there on YouTube, right? What a great
what we'd like you all to do, please, is to share. If you've enjoyed the show, please share it. And email us if you have a story, or you want to be on, or you don't want to be on camera but you'd like to talk. We can do that too, but we'd love to have people on, and so please, think about it and be a guest. So thank you, Al Pisano, for being my lovely co-host, and thank you all for watching, and we shall see you all, who knows, whenever next time.
Yes.
Right?
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.